top 10 airbenders in Avatar. The Last Airbender. Um, so I got 10 of them that I could think of. There's like in Avatar, the Last Airbender, right? Aang's the only one, and then there's Gyatsu. But then in Avatar Korra, we understand that Aang has children. One of his children, became an airbender, and he had his own kids. And then they were airbenders. And then after Korra defeated Vatu fused Unalaq, the Dark Avatar, right? The spirit world and the human world, were like kind of out of sync, or there was an imbalance. So what did that do? That created more airbenders. People who didn't have bending abilities started, coming up with airbending abilities. So I was able to think of 10 airbenders. So number 10 is Bumi, Aang's son. He, acquired airbending techniques after that happened, right? After Korra defeated Unalaq. And that was in season 2. He was fused with Vatu, the evil spirit. And he became like the Dark Avatar or whatever, but she was able to defeat him. Though Bumi like gained airbending, he was like not, he wasn't like his brother Tenzin, because before he was just a regular guy, and then he acquired airbending techniques. So even his like nephew and niece were better than he was, because they had better experience at using airbending techniques. But I have him at number 10 because he is the son of Aang, and he could do better than the other people who acquired the airbending techniques, except one that I do have higher than him. You'll see him later on the list. But at number 9, I have Ikki, which is one of Tenzin's daughters. Not the one that was like cool with the spirit world and had a great connection to the spirit world, but the other one that was younger and like less experienced. She knows how to fly. Or like fly with the glider. Not actually fly like with her, like just jump off a cliff and fly. She needs the little airbending thing that Aang had. The air glider, right? But she knows how to, do the basic airbending techniques just like her grandfather and father, She knows how to like do all of that shit, that airbenders used to do like before she was, but she's like not experienced as she don't have the airbending techniques. Number 8, I have Meelo, which is the son of Tenzin and the grandson of Avatar Aang, right? That boy is decent, but again, he's young and inexperienced, just like Ikki. But he's still better than his uncle, and he's better than Ikki, I believe. You could swap those two out, like those positions out if you wanted to. But for me, I think he's better than she is. He's more of an offensive capable. He could fight some people and defend people if he had to. Now, number 7, that's that boy Kai, who ended up gaining airbending techniques after season 2 was over. And season 3 began, right? Just like Bumi, he wasn't an airbender before that, but then he was. If I remember correctly, because like I know Korra a little bit less, but like I've watched it, I just forget. I like Avatar Last Airbender more, but he was like taken by like the Earth Kingdom so they could create a like army of airbenders so they could become strong. They were like collecting them all up, but then Tenzin was like, okay, if there's new airbenders, then I need to be the one to like train them up in the ways of airbending, because I understand airbending like my father wanted me to do this, repopulate the world with airbenders and like teach it to like even these people who just ain't of my blood but still have like they're now airbenders, so they should come to me. Like person who's has the tattoos and understands airbending and like the philosophies and everything of like the culture and behind airbending too. So Tenzin tried to, or he did, get them, and then he ended up teaching them airbending the correct way. But Kai was one of those guys, and he ended up, training with Jinora, I think, and they were able to, he was able to become a pretty damn good airbender, but not like the rest of the ones above him. Like these ones are actual airbenders. They have tattoos and everything, except one of them. One of them don't, but he could have if he like, I don't know, did the right thing and other things. But at number 6, I got Tenzin. He's the first one on this list with a airbending tattoo. This guy, he's the son of Avatar Aang, and he was the one that took to airbending. But unlike his father, he didn't have a good connection with like the spiritual aspects of airbending and being close with like that and getting in tune with the spirit world. But he knew about like how to airbend, how to like ride on wind and you know throw people around with wind. He knew about like the air temples that his father taught him about, all those air temples, and then he understood how important he was to like not just his family but also the Korra too. He was like, you have to learn airbending from me. There's not many airbenders nowadays, and you are the avatar. You need to learn all 4 elements so you can protect this world the right way, and keep peace and harmony in the world. You'll need all 4 elements for shit like that, right? But he was, doing his best to teach her airbending, and he was basically Avatar Korra's airbending instructor and the son of Avatar Aang. You know, he's pretty damn good. Like, he can fight against people and everything else, but he's not like the ones I have above him. Like his own daughter, Jinora. Now, Jinora, she ended up getting her airbending tattoos at the end of Korra. But she had a connection to the spirit world. She knew how to get into the spirit world and see all the, like, spirit creatures and all that shit, just like the Avatar. She, and like, that's the thing, that the airbenders had that ability, because they were cool and calm-minded and shit like that, right? They knew how to, like, meditate and, get on that type of, wavelength to go into the spirit world. However, Tenzin was finding it hard for himself, but Jinora just took to it better, and she was actually good at the airbending techniques too. That's why I have her higher than her father. Now he had more experience than her, but like she still like knew airbending techniques no different than him. And then she could also go into the spirit world. She could meditate and get into the spirit world, which is like what airbenders do. They used to like meditate and be at one with like spirit world, human world. They understood that they had to keep a balance. They couldn't just be in the spirit world all the time, or like be in the physical world. It was like they had to keep a balance and float between each state, understanding that each state of existence or whatever exists. But I have Avatar Yangchen at number 4. You might be like, why is she at number 4? Yeah, Avatar Yangchen, she's at number 4. Yangchen was the airbending avatar before Avatar Aang. She, um, you know, did her thing. It's stated that, in like, real, Avatar, fans, Avatar, series fans, they understand that she can steal people's ability to like breathe, take all the air out of their, lungs and like, kill them that way. Um, but Avatar Yang Chen, in her lifetime, she was overcome with like the voices of her past life. See, because airbending is like that, right? She could hear the voices and like of her like past lives, and like she let that shit like kind of get to her, so like she wasn't fully present in her day to day, but she was also like a diplomat and other things for the Airbenders, because she was the Avatar. So she went around the different, nations, and at that time, the Fire Nation wasn't doing its thing that it did in Aang's time, but like she was there. She went to like all four nations, learned the, four elements and shit too. And then she had like, she tried to keep good relations between the airbenders and like the rest of the world, and that's what she tried to do. But she had the ability to steal people's breath. And also she had the ability to go into the Avatar state and, do what Aang does and the other Avatars do too. But I do have Zaher at number 3, and he didn't have airbending tattoos. But what did Zaher know how to do? He did calls to the teaching of Lahima, who was one of the airbenders like 400 years ago. And Lahima was an airbender who was able to fly, like just like off like his own aura or, chi energy, whatever you want to call it. He could, use his chakra to fly, without using uh, um, the God, I keep forgetting. The air glider that Aang uses, without using that shit. Just like jump off a cliff and he's flying. And that's what he was able to do. And he could also still, air out of people's lungs. He did that shit to the Earth King or Earth Queen, and he also did it to, some other people. He was doing it to Avatar Korra. He was trying to kill her. He was like on the way to do that. See, that's why I have him above Yangchen, because he, was trying to hunt down the Avatar and kill her. Because him and the Red Lotus believed that the Avatar was actually the reason why the world goes into like these, times of like, the world goes out of sorts because of the Avatar. They understand that the Avatar is out there, and then people, do things, and the Avatar has to, protect it. But if the Avatar wasn't there, then, he believed that the world would be better without the Avatar. This guy was kind of not a good person. We know this. But he calls to the teachings of Lahima, and he was able to unlock airbending. Like when everything, went right. And he also had a connection to the spirit world too. He actually was in tune with the spirit world as well, because he met Korra in the spirit world as well, and let her know that he was on his way to hunt her down and kill her. But at number 2, I have Gyatso. See, Gyatso is one of those, airbenders like Yangchen and, the person I'll talk about next, who, was actually an airbender during the times when there was airbenders everywhere in the southern, northern, western, eastern air temples. He actually, helped train up 2 of the avatars, Avatar Roku and Avatar Aang, both. So, like, in airbending techniques, he was the one who was using the air glider as like a surfing tool and other things. He was very creative with it, the way he used airbending. He got his airbending tattoos and shit, right? And, he lived a long time, and he taught both Avatar Roku and Aang. So I have to give credence to shit like that. And, he died fighting against multiple firebenders, not just one. And they were also, all these firebenders were also powered by Sozin's Comet. So he was, a pretty damn powerful airbender. And I got him above all those airbenders. But we know who number 1 is. Avatar Aang is number 1. Avatar Aang was an Avatar and airbender like no other, like both. He had to save the world at like age 12, right? This boy ended up, taking the airbending like easily, right? He grew up in the air temples, right? Trained by Monkey Gyatso, and he also, was able to be creative in his own ways with the air too. He was able to, do all kinds of shit. We've seen this in Avatar. The no-handed push-ups and, throwing people around with air, which all the airbenders can do, with the way Aang did it. It was impressive. He, he brought the Airbenders back from the brink too. By having his son Tenzin, after everything was said and done, he broke out of Yukon's powers. Now that's not airbending, but that's Avatar state, right? He also, what was I gonna say? He got his airbending tattoos when he was like young. He was one of the youngest known airbenders with airbending tattoos. Him and his granddaughter are like the youngest like airbenders who got their airbending tattoos at a young age. And it's like proof of like mastery over airbending. Like you could then teach the other airbenders how to be, like that, true air nomad. And he knew about his people and everything else. He had to fight against Ozai and the Fire Nation, and he defeated Ozai, in a true airbender fashion. They don't believe in conflict. They use their skills for fighting. They definitely fight, but they try to, resolve shit with conversations first. And that didn't work, so then he took away his took away his bending. Now that's not airbending, right? But we understand that during that time there was nobody who could do shit to him. Like he was the only one. Hence Avatar: The Last Airbender. And then even if he was around in like Korra's time, like he's the one who like knows airbending better than all of them. He taught Tenzin. His granddaughter knows how to get in the spirit world, but he's an avatar too. He can do that shit too. He knows how to use like all of that shit. He's very creative with the way he uses airbending. So Avatar Aang is number one. But let me know what you think in the comments, and that is that for Green Angel's take on the top 10 airbenders in the Avatar series. Be cool, call on the corner.